Hi, good afternoon to all of you. So let us start once again. In the last session, we completed with American history and we began to discuss briefly about French Revolution by the end of 18th century. Clear. We began to discuss that all medieval system and institutions in France began to be questioned and challenged by the end of 18th century, leading to a political revolution known as the French Revolution in 1789, which continued almost for one decade till 1799 without any interruption. Clear? And we began to discuss about the major factors that led to the French Revolution. One major factor was the structure of French economy and society, which was purely hierarchical in nature, filled with discriminatory system, and this structure was known as ancient regime. In this ancient regime, the top position in hierarchy was occupied by the clergy class, the religious class, which was also known as the first state. The second position was occupied by the nobility class, as feudalism existed, and they were known as the second state. First and second state combined together were just 5% of the total French population. They were exempted from all for taxation and they were given all privileges. Clear? In contrast to them, the remaining population of 95% comprised of the third state. It comprised of common people, skilled and unskilled workers, professional, teachers, doctors. Clear? And all burden of taxation fell on them. Clear? Obviously, the people of the third state wanted to get rid of this ancient regime, and therefore they were looking for an opportunity to go for revolutionary change in France. So obviously the pyramidical and the discriminatory hierarchy that existed in France was the first major factor that led to huge discontent among the people, and that became the first major factor leading to French Revolution. Clear? But at the same time, the French people were motivated, inspired to go for revolutionary changes just because of the role played by French thinkers and philosophers. Clear? There were some prominent French thinkers and philosophers who inspired the masses to go for revolutionary changes, and therefore French philosophy played a very important role in French Revolution. We'll come to the second factor, that is the role of thinkers and philosophers in France. Clear? First of all, we'll write about the ancient regime. Clear? So we began to discuss briefly. We'll write the composition of the ancient regime. Clear? Right, next paragraph. Clear? That in ancient regime, the top position in social hierarchy, the top position in social hierarchy was occupied by the clergy class, who were also known as the first state, ESTAT, also known as the first state. Clear? Right. The second position in this hierarchy, was occupied by the nobility class, also known as the second state. Clear? Right, next sentence. Right, both first and second states combined together, were just 5% of the total population, who were given all privileges, and exemptions from taxes. exemptions from taxes. Exemption from taxes. Clear? Right. On the other hand, the remaining 95%, on the other hand, the remaining 95% of the total population, comprised of common people, who were collectively known as the third state. Collectively known as the third state. Known as the third state. Clear? Third state. Right. This group included peasants, workers, professionals, and even philosophers. Clear? Right. The whole burden of taxation was on the shoulders of the third state. That led to huge discontent, against the ancient regime, traditional regime, outdated regime, against the ancient regime, which became a major reason behind the French Revolution. Clear? So this was the first major factor leading to French Revolution. Now coming to the second factor, that was the role of thinkers and philosophers. Change paragraph. Clear? Right. The second major factor leading to French Revolution, was the role of thinkers and philosophers. We'll come to the role of thinkers and philosophers. Clear? Now there's a question. Sir, is there or were in France any king or monarch? Obviously, we'll come to monarchy. Clear? Autocratic monarchy was one of the major factors behind French Revolution, which was a relic of the medieval system. Clear? So we'll come to monarchy. We'll discuss about monarchy elaborately. Don't worry. Clear? So first major factor is the ancient regime that exists in France. Second major factor is the role of thinkers and philosophers. And third major factor is financial crisis, in which French monarch was largely responsible. We'll come to that. Clear? Vishwajit. So coming to the role of thinkers and philosophers. Clear? Now just understand from here, three thinkers and philosophers played very important role in French Revolution. Clear? One major thinker was Voltaire. Clear? Now what was the role of Voltaire? Voltaire was a French philosopher who took the initiative to criticize the institution of church and the corrupt practices of the clergy class. As we had discussed, throughout medieval times, church was declared to be an infallible institution, that is the institution which cannot commit any wrong, clear, and no one dared to challenge the institution of church. But Voltaire became the pioneer of challenging the institution of church and even the corrupt practices of the clergy class. And Voltaire began to advocate that even church is not infallible. Church can commit mistake, and people should apply the scientific and rational thinking to judge any event or episode. Clear? So obviously Voltaire was the first person who challenged the institution of church and the domination and corrupt practices of the clergy class. Clear? Such daring approach gave huge confidence to masses, and masses began to feel confident even to challenge the institution of church and the clergy class. Clear? Second major thinker and philosopher in France, this person was Montesquieu. This person was Montesquieu, and Montesquieu advocated the concept of constitutional monarchy in place of autocratic monarchy. Clear? France was ruled by autocratic monarchs who belonged to the family of Bourbons. Clear? Every major country of Europe was ruled by royal family. The royal family in France was known as the Bourbon family, and all the rulers ruled over France by virtue of belonging to this family. And Montesquieu questioned this autocratic monarchy and advocated the principle of constitutional monarchy. This also inspired the masses to war against autocratic monarchs. Moreover, Montesquieu advocated the concept of separation of powers. We had discussed, and therefore when separation of powers was advocated, masses realized that concentration of all powers must not be in one organ or autocratic monarch. Rather, it should be distributed so that check and counter check could be followed, and that was only possible through revolutionary change. So this kind of change was introduced by Montesquieu. Clear? Apart from Voltaire and Montesquieu, the most important French philosopher who inspired the masses to go for revolutionary changes, this major philosopher was Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Clear? The person Jean-Jacques Rousseau, clear? He is considered to be one of the most important philosophers of political theory. Now we'll understand about the philosophy of Rousseau. Clear? Rousseau gave the theory of social contract in 18th century, and in this theory of social contract, he highlighted a principle, very important principle. This principle is explained in two simple words. This principle is known as the principle of general will. Very important. Clear? According to Rousseau, clear, the will or the consent of general masses, clear, is mandatory to establish and sustain any political state. Clear? So a state can be established and sustained only with the consent or will of the masses, common people. Clear? And therefore there should be a contract between the masses and the state, whereby masses will sacrifice some of their resources in form of taxes. Clear? And in return, state will ensure their safety, security and development. Clear? So it would be a kind of contract between the masses and the state, whereby masses will sacrifice some resources in terms of their taxes, and state will ensure the safety, security and development. Rousseau also made it clear, in case there is any breach in this contract, masses will have all the right to uproot the state. Clear? So state can be ended by masses if there is breach in social contract, and this state can come to an end by revolutionary changes. Clear? Such kind of philosophy known as general will, given through social contract theory, made masses very clear that they are supreme, they are sovereign, and without their consent the state cannot function. And therefore, in order to ensure that popular will, popular sovereignty should exist in France, they decided to go for revolutionary changes. Clear? So all these thinkers and philosophers gave a sense of freedom and fearlessness to masses to bring about the revolutionary changes in France. And therefore we get a question mains examination that political revolution in France was preceded by Ideological revolution, discuss. Obviously, political revolution was preceded by ideological revolution promoted by Voltaire, Montesquieu and Rousseau. Clear? We'll first of all discuss about the philosophy of these major thinkers. Clear? Right. The first major philosopher of France, the first major philosopher of France, Voltaire. Franz Voltaire. Voltaire attacked the institution of church. Attacked the institution of church and the practices of the clergy class. And the practices of the clergy class. Practices of the clergy class. Clear? Right. It was a daring step. It was a daring step to challenge the clergy class, and to declare that even church was not infallible. Even church was not infallible. It can commit mistake. Church was not infallible. INFALLIBLE was not infallible. Clear? Right. Such philosophy gave huge confidence. Such philosophy gave huge confidence. To the masses, to challenge the institution of church, and to believe in their own sense of judgment. And to believe in their own sense of judgment. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. The second important French philosopher. The second important French philosopher was Montesquieu. Who advocated constitutional monarchy. In place of autocratic monarchy. Clear? Right. Autocrat. Right. France was ruled by the members of the Bourbon family. The ruling family of France was ruled by the members of the Bourbon family. Members of the Bourbon family. Who never cared for French people, that led to serious discontent. that led to serious discontent. Clear? Right. According to Montesquieu, the power and authority of monarch must be fixed in a written constitution, constitutional monarchy, in a written constitution, in a written constitution. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. Montesquieu also advocated the principle of separation of powers. Principle of separation of powers. Separation of powers to ensure check and counter check. To ensure check and counter check so as to prevent arbitrary rule. So as to prevent arbitrary rule. Arbitrary rule. Montesquieu, clear? Change paragraph. Right. However, the most important French philosopher of 18th century, the most important French philosopher of 18th century, was Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who gave the theory of social contract. Based on the principle of general will. Based on the principle of general will. Principle of general will. Principle of general will. Okay. Right. According to this principle, a state is established and sustained. A state is established and sustained with the consent or will of the general masses, Clear? Right. In other words, masses are sovereign and supreme. Sovereign and supreme. Clear? Right. According to social contract theory, masses has to sacrifice their resources for state in lieu of security and development. in lieu of security and development. Okay. Right. In case of any breach, BREACH, in case of any breach, in case of any breach, 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 any breach of contract, the state can be uprooted. The state can be uprooted through revolution. Can be uprooted through revolution. Through revolution. Clear? Revolution. Right? In this way, masses began to realize that their sacrifice needs to be properly rewarded. By the state. Needs to be properly rewarded by the state. And to promote radical changes in case their aspirations are not fulfilled. Change paragraph. Clear? Right. The ideas of French philosophers gave huge confidence to masses, and prepared them for revolutionary changes. Okay? Right. Therefore, it is accepted by scholars that political revolution in France was preceded by ideological revolution. So just understand, just pause. Clear? Is it fine? So, two major factors. First of all, the ancient regime, and second was the role of thinkers and philosophers. Clear? The third major factor was the immediate factor which led to the outbreak of French Revolution, in which the major role was played by French monarchy. Clear? We had right now discussed that all rulers of France belonged to the royal family known as the Bourbon family. None of them cared for masses. All of them ruled by virtue of belonging to royal family, and that also resulted into deep financial crisis in France. Clear? So the third major factor was the deep financial crisis. Clear? Right, next paragraph. The third and the immediate factor. Leading to French Revolution was the financial crisis. Now we'll understand this. Clear? we had discussed right now only just some time back only that American War of Independence took place in the second half of the 18th century, to be precise from 1776 till 1782. And we had discussed that in this War of American Independence, George Washington was the leader of 13 British colonies against the forces of British government headed by Lord Cornwallis. Clear? And due to continuous reinforcement provided by Britain, George Washington began to face reverses. And all these things were closely monitored by France and Spain. At that point of time, at that critical time, French monarch was a member of Bourbon family. So Bourbon monarch of France at the time when American War of Independence was going on, this person was Louis XIV. Clear? So Louis XIV was the ruler of France belonging to Bourbon family, and Louis XIV only provided all major support to George Washington, both in men and material, to act against British forces. Clear? It was also because of arch rivalry with Britain, and it was also because that France never wanted Britain to defeat 13 British colonies, which could have affected the prestige, or which could have affected the safety of Louisiana or New France. Clear? So Louis XIV provided all necessary support to George Washington, and just because of this support only, George Washington was able to defeat Lord Cornwallis. Even though 13 British colonies became successful, but it deeply affected the financial condition of France, and Louis XIV could not resolve this financial crisis. Clear? Leaving the financial crisis as it was, clear, Louis XIV died and was succeeded by another person of the Bourbon family, that is Louis XV. Louis XV also could not resolve the financial crisis of France, and in 1783, Louis XV was succeeded by another Bourbon family ruler, and he was Louis XVI. Clear? Louis XVI came to power in 1783, and he really wanted to solve the financial problem in France. Clear? He came to power in 1783. Louis XVI began to take advice from leading financial experts how to resolve the financial crisis. Clear? All financial experts gave only one suggestion to Louis XVI to resolve financial crisis, and that was, clear, that all of them wanted that Louis XVI to impose heavy taxes on the clergy and the nobility class, because these experts were of opinion the third estate is already overburdened with taxes, they cannot pay more taxes. Clear? So in order to resolve the financial crisis of France, Louis XVI needed to impose taxes on the first and the second state. But to impose taxes on clergy and nobility class, Louis XVI needed huge amount of courage and determination. Louis XVI was an honest person, but Louis XVI did not have this courage to impose taxes on the clergy and the nobility class. So he was an honest person, was not the need of the hour, because he didn't have the courage and grit to impose taxes on clergy and nobility class. Moreover, the financial condition of France at this time was also affected by the wife of Louis XVI. She was an Austrian princess, and this Austrian princess and the wife of Louis XVI, this person was known as Marie Antoinette. Clear? So Marie Antoinette was Austrian princess and the wife of Louis XVI. Clear? She was known for extravagant expenditure. Whatever meager resources were there in French treasury, she used those resources for such projects which was unnecessary, like construction of castles at this time in France. Clear? So all of this affected the sentiments of common people, and they realized that hard-earned money is being wasted in extravagant expenditure. Clear? This further aggravated the financial crisis in France, and ultimately, clear, when Louis XVI realized that no solution is available, Louis XVI convened the meeting of all the three states in 1789 in the Palace of Versailles. Clear? So Louis XVI convened a conference in the Palace of Versailles, of the representative of all the three states. Clear? When this meeting was convened, it's known as States General Meeting. Clear? Obviously, the representatives of clergy class also went to attend, the representative of nobility class and the representative of common masses. Clear? All the representatives of first and second state, that is clergy and nobility class, they took their seat on the right side in the palace of Versailles, and all the representatives of the third state took their seat on the left side of the palace of Versailles, and from here only the terms left and right originated. Clear? So the terms left and right originated during French Revolution. Clear? All the persons who took the seat on the left hand side, that is the representative third state, they were pro changes, they wanted radical changes for us, and therefore left group began to indicate pro-revolutionary sentiments. Clear? And all the representatives of the first and second state who took their seats on the right hand side, they never wanted any radical change, and they came to be known as anti-revolutionaries. Clear? So from here only the terms left and right began to indicate pro-revolutionaries and anti-revolutionaries. Moreover, since representatives of the third state were in majority, because they represented 95% of the people, the representatives of the third state made it clear that no decision can be taken in this meeting without majority consensus, because they knew they had majority much more than nobility and clergy classes. But this demand of the third state was not acceptable to Louis XVI. Clear? And thereafter the representatives of the third state left the conference midway. They assembled at a nearby tennis court, and at tennis court they took a pledge, they took an oath that time has come to bring about radical changes in France. And to introduce these radical changes, the representatives of the third state attacked the state prison of Bastille in France on 14th of July 1789. Since then till now, 14th of July is celebrated every day as the National Day in France. Clear? And on 14th of July, when they attacked the state prison of Bastille, they liberated the prisoners, and that marked the beginning of French Revolution with three major ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity. Clear? So this marked the beginning of French Revolution exactly on 14th of July 1789 with this immediate factor, that is financial crisis in France. From here the term left and right originated. You must be well aware about these terms, especially in Kolkata and Bengal, because left wing ideology means pro-revolutionary ideology, right wing ideology means status quo ideology or anti-revolutionary ideologies. It's clear. First of all, write about this crisis. Clear? Right. Right. In the second half of the 18th century, in the second half of the 18th century, second half of 18th century, American War of Independence was fought. American War of Independence was fought. Independence was fought, in which the Bourbon monarch of France, Bourbon monarch of France, Louis XIV, Bourbon monarch of France, Louis XIV provided huge support to the 13 British colonies, Okay? Like this support affected the financial position of France, and Louis XIV died without resolving the financial crisis. Clear? Right. He was succeeded by Louis XV, who also failed to resolve the financial problem, financial problem. Clear? Financial problem. Right. Louis XV was followed by Louis XVI, followed by Louis XVI. Louis XV was followed by Louis XVI. Louis XVI, followed by Louis XVI, who was an honest person, but lacked proper courage, and determination, proper courage and determination, Clear? Right. During his rule, the financial crisis was aggravated. By his wife, Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette, who was an Austrian princess. Do you remember her origin? We'll come to this. Who was an Austrian princess. Clear? Right. She wasted the resources on extravagant projects. Which further affected the sentiments of taxpayers. Change paragraph. Right. Under such circumstances, Louis XVI convened the meeting of the States General, ES, convened the meeting of the States General, the representative of all the three states, convened the meeting of the States General in the Palace of Versailles. Very important location, France, in the Palace of Versailles. Okay. Right. During this meeting, the representatives of the third state, took their seat. The representatives of the third state took the seat on the left side. Whereas the representatives of the first and the second states representatives of the first and the second states took their seat on the right side, took their seat on the right side, right here only, very important, right? From here the terms left and right originated, right? Left within inverted comma, right within inverted comma. From here the terms left and right originated, exhibiting pro-revolutionary and anti-revolutionary sentiments, exhibiting pro-revolutionary and anti-revolutionary sentiments, anti-revolutionary sentiments, anti-revolutionary sentiments, revolutionary sentiments. Clear? Change paragraph, right? Moreover, the representatives of the third state who were in majority, the representatives of the third state who were in majority, demanded, that decisions must be taken on the basis of majority consensus, with demand of majority people, majority consensus. Okay, right. However, this demand was rejected by the French monarch. Rejected by the French monarch, and the representatives of the third state, abandoned the meeting. The representatives of the third state abandoned the meeting. Okay, right? These members assembled at a nearby tennis court. Very important game in France. Assembled at a nearby tennis court, and took a pledge, P-L-E-D-G-E, took a pledge. It's also known as tennis court pledge, tennis court oath. Took a pledge to bring about revolutionary changes in France. Revolutionary changes in France. Okay? Right? These members attacked the state prison of Bastille. On 14th of July, this date is important. Bastille, on 14th of July, 1789. 14th of July, 1789. 1789 to release the prisoners, release the prisoners. Clear? Right. This marked the beginning of the French Revolution, with the ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity. With the ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity. Liberty, equality and fraternity. So this was outbreak of French Revolution. So factors are clear. First major factor, and you get separate question on single factor. That is why we had discussed those factors elaborately. Clear? So first of all, ancient regime that was responsible for huge discontent among the masses leading to revolution. Second was the important role played by French thinkers and philosophers. And third important thing is deep financial crisis, largely because of the activities of French monarch belonging to the royal Bourbon family. Clear? So all these factors we had discussed leading to outbreak of French Revolution exactly on 14th of July 1789 with ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity. Are the reasons behind French Revolution clear to all of you? Please revert back. Clear? I want your responses as well before we proceed further. So some of you can respond. Are the factors clear to all of you leading to French Revolution? Clear. If you keep on reverting, at least we are not connected physically or don't have physical classes, at least we are connected through virtual medium. I want all of you to respond, at least to have a sense that everything is very clear to all of you. Clear? Yes, sir, clear. Thank you. Thank you. Your responses means a lot to me. Then only I can feel confident to move forward because I can realize that all of you are getting what exactly I'm trying to give it to all of you. Yes, sir, clear. Subrata, fine. Thank you so much, Claire. Your revert or your responses means a lot to me. Yes, sir, Nemai, fine. Thank you. Great, clear. So now, just understand, apart from the factors that led to French Revolution, now we'll discuss about the phases of this revolution. Since it is the only political revolution that went on for 10 years continuously, we need to discuss about the phases of French Revolution from 1789 till 1799. Clear? So let us understand about the phases of French Revolution. Clear? So now we'll move on to discuss about the next major topic, and the next major topic is phases of French Revolution. Phases, write the heading, phases of French Revolution. Phases of French Revolution. We'll discuss about the phases of this revolution. Okay? Now just understand, before we write, you need to understand the phases of French Revolution first. Clear? See, first of all, we need to understand about the phases. Clear? See, French Revolution broke out in 1789, continued till 1799. As soon as the French Revolution started in 1789, with ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity derived from the philosophy of Voltaire, Montesquieu and Rousseau. Clear? The first phase was marked by the phase of National Assembly or Legislative Assembly. So the first phase of French Revolution was known as Legislative Assembly. Phase of Legislative Assembly, also known as phase of National Assembly. So phase of Legislative Assembly, or National Assembly. Clear? And this phase was from 1789 till the year 1791, almost for 2 years. To understand before you write, clear? During this phase of legislative assembly, clear, it was decided that all decisions will be taken by the members of this legislative assembly, that is revolutionary leaders. They will not accept the rules and regulations of the Bourbon monarch or the French monarch, that is Louis XVI. Clear? The most important development during this phase was that during the phase of legislative assembly, all revolutionary leaders decided to have an elected head in France. Clear? Since they took a decision to have an elected head in France, France became a republic. Clear? Republic means having an elected head, and in this way it is accepted by scholars that after United States, France became the second republic in world history. Clear? So after United States, the second country to become republic in the world was France, and this decision was taken by legislative assembly, also known as the National Assembly. Clear? After this phase, clear, the next phase that started after the phase of national or legislative assembly, this phase was known as the phase of National Convention. Second phase was marked by phase of National Convention, which was more binding in nature, the phase of National Convention, and it started from 1791 and continued till 1795. Now we need to discuss about this phase clearly. Clear? Why we need to discuss this? We need to understand this. Clear? Okay. First of all, I'll let you know National Convention. Clear? Why this binding regime was established, why National Assembly was replaced by National Convention in 1791, just after 2 years. Clear? You need to understand one thing, that when this revolution broke out, clear, in 1789, when this revolution broke out in 1789, large number of the members of clergy and the nobility class, clear, large number of members of nobility and the clergy class, they left the region of France. Clear? They left the region of France and went to two countries. Went to two countries of Europe, that is Britain and Austria. French Revolution. Clear? French Revolution. Now just understand the background first. Clear? Before we discuss this, there's a question. Sir, is Eiffel Tower at the time of Louis XVI any relation between Eiffel Tower and French Revolution? No, just understand, make it clear, Vishwajit. Eiffel Tower in France was not constructed during the regime of Louis XVI. In fact, Eiffel Tower began to be constructed from 1889, and it began to be constructed from 1889 to mark the 100th year of French Revolution. Clear? So in this way, Eiffel Tower is connected with French Revolution. It was not constructed during Louis XVI. Clear? Eiffel Tower began to be digged, or place began to be digged, and construction started from 1889, and this date was chosen, this year was chosen because it marked the 100th year of French Revolution. So French Revolution broke out in 1789. Exactly after 100 years, in 1889, the French experts and architects began to construct Eiffel Tower just to commemorate the completion of 1 century or 100 years of French Revolution. In this way, Eiffel Tower is connected with French Revolution. Clear? Just to mark the 100th anniversary of French Revolution. Is that clear, Vishwajit? So Eiffel Tower not constructed during the reign of Louis XVI, but Eiffel Tower was constructed after completion of 100th year of French Revolution. It began to be constructed from 1889. This is the relation between Eiffel Tower and French Revolution. Is that clear, Vishwajit? Please revert back. Clear? Fine, clear. So coming to National Convention. Now, why this National Convention? Why the phase of National Assembly was replaced by a binding regime known as National Convention? Just understand. Clear? As soon as French Revolution broke out in 1789, large number of the members of clergy and nobility class, they left France because they knew northern interests cannot be protected, because this revolution was led by the people of the third estate. Clear? That is why large number of the representatives of clergy and the nobility class, they went to two countries of Europe, that is Britain and Austria, and they requested the leaders of Britain and Austria to check the French Revolution, to stop French Revolution. Now, why they went only to Britain and Austria, and why Britain and Austria decided to support them? Clear? The reason was Britain and France were arch rivals, and Britain never wanted such progressive changes like liberty, equality and fraternity to take place in France that could have led to further rivalry between the two countries. Clear? So Britain wanted that medieval system should continue in France, which was represented by clergy and nobility class. So Britain decided to support the clergy and nobility class. Clear? At the same time, Austria decided to support clergy and nobility class because Austrian princess Marie Antoinette was married to Louis XVI, and this revolution started against Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. So to protect the interest of Marie Antoinette, Austrian princess, Austria decided to support clergy and nobility class. Just because Britain and Austria began to support the clergy and nobility class, anti-revolutionary sentiments also began to be promoted in French Revolution. So apart from revolutionary sentiment promoted by leaders, anti-revolutionary sentiments began to be sponsored by Britain and Austria in French Revolution. Such anti-revolutionary sentiments became a potential threat for French Revolution, and in order to sustain this French Revolution, French leaders realized time has come to replace the National Legislative Assembly into binding regime known as National Convention, and to deal with anti-revolutionaries largely sponsored by Britain and Austria. During the phase of National Convention, large number of ultra-revolutionary groups began to be formed. Clear? Since large number of ultra-revolutionary groups began to form to act against anti-revolutionaries, the most prominent ultra-revolutionary group that was formed was known as Jacobin Club. Clear? And this Jacobin Club, marked by strict revolutionaries, ultra-revolutionaries, was founded and established by a great revolutionary of France, and this revolutionary was Robespierre. Clear? The members of Jacobin Club, they began to assassinate, they began to kill large number of people only on grounds of suspicion. Several anti-revolutionaries were beheaded, several anti-revolutionaries were persecuted. Clear? And therefore such phenomena created an atmosphere of terror all around. Clear? At this time, when large number of people were arrested only on grounds of suspicion, due to paucity of time, most of these anti-revolutionaries were beheaded en masse, collectively, and this phenomena of assassinating large number of anti-revolutionaries only on grounds of suspicion en masse is known as the phenomena of guillotine. This term that is used in parliamentary sense right now was first originated in French Revolution. Clear? And just because of such atmosphere only, as a mark of guillotine only, clear, the members of Jacobin Club even assassinated Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. Clear? So both Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI was assassinated during the reign of period of National Convention. Clear? Just because of this phenomena, clear, this period when Jacobin Club ruled over France, this phase is known as Reign of Terror. Atmosphere of intimidation began to prevail, and this reign of terror continued almost for 1 year, from 1793 till 1794. This was reign of terror. Clear? But just because of this reign of terror, French Revolution got sustained as it acted against anti-revolutionaries. However, such radical measures adopted by Jacobin Club and its members, clear, such radical gesture deviated the French Revolution from the high-sounding ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity. So the principles with which French Revolution started were compromised due to radical measures adopted by Jacobin Club during Reign of Terror, especially during the phase of National Convention. Therefore, moderate revolutionaries came forward. They wanted to bring back revolution on the track of liberty, equality and fraternity, and they retaliated against the National Convention. Clear? This reaction led by moderate revolutionaries in France, this reaction led by moderate revolutionaries is known as Thermodorian reaction. Clear? So Thermodorian reaction took place against the Reign of Terror, and just because of Thermodorian reaction only, the Reign of Terror came to an end, and just because of this reaction, even National Convention was replaced. Clear? And National Convention was marked by the third phase in French Revolution, and this third phase in French Revolution is known as the phase of Directory. Clear? So the third phase is known as the phase of Directory, and this phase continued from 1795 till 1799. Under the phase of Directory, 5 directors were chosen to take all decisions about France. So in order to respect the sentiments of people, power was not asserted by a single person. Clear? Rather, 5 directors were appointed under the system of Directory to take decisions about France. And this phase continued from 1795 till 1799. During the phase of Directory only, a capable military general emerged in France. Clear? This capable military general who emerged in France, this person was Napoleon Bonaparte. This person was Napoleon Bonaparte. Clear? And Napoleon Bonaparte also realized one thing, that 2 countries which are against French Revolution, these countries were Britain and Austria. And Napoleon decided to affect the prestige of Britain and Austria to support French Revolution. He took permission from Directory, from 5 directors, to attack the prestige of Austria and Britain by attacking the colonies in Europe, Asia and Africa. Clear? And with permission of directors only, Napoleon started his march from France, attacked the major countries of Europe, Africa and Asia, largely to affect the prestige of Austria and Britain, which were against French Revolution. This marked the emergence of Napoleon Bonaparte as a great warrior of France during the phase of Directory. So 3 major phases of French Revolution, that is Legislative Assembly, National Convention and Directory. And will come, Napoleon only ended the system of Directory and announced the end of French Revolution in 1799. We'll come to this. This phase is clear. This concept is clear during National Convention, Jacobin Club, Robespierre, Reign of Terror, Thermodorian reaction and even assassination of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Clear? Write about this. Write heading as Phases of French Revolution. You must have written heading. Write introduction. Clear? Right. The French Revolution. The French Revolution is the only political revolution. The French Revolution is the only political revolution which continued for 1 decade, uninterruptedly, uninterruptedly. That is 1789 to 1799, uninterruptedly. Right, this revolution was marked by distinct phases. This revolution was marked by distinct phases according to situations. Clear? Right. The first phase of French Revolution the first phase of French Revolution was marked by legislative assembly or the National Assembly, marked by the legislative assembly or the National Assembly. National Assembly. Legislative Assembly or National Assembly from 1789 till 1791. From 1789 till 1791. Okay. Right. During this phase, French revolutionaries decided to make their own laws, rather than to accept the law of the French monarch, rather than to accept the law of the French monarch. Law of the French monarch. Okay. Right. The most important decision of the Legislative Assembly, the most important decision of the Legislative Assembly was to declare France as a republic. That is, to have an elected head, was to declare France as a republic. Okay. Right. In this way, France became the second republic. In this way, France became the second republic after United States. Clear? Now change paragraph. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. In 1791, the phase of Legislative Assembly was replaced by the phase of National Convention, which proved to be binding in nature. Right. By this time, by 1791, anti-revolutionary sentiments began to be sponsored. Anti-revolutionary sentiments began to be sponsored by Britain and Austria, on the request of the clergy and the nobility classes. On the request of the clergy and the nobility classes. Clear? Right. Right. Britain wanted to prohibit radical and progressive changes in France. Britain wanted to prohibit radical and progressive changes in France. Whereas Austria wanted to safeguard. The interest of Louis XVI and his wife. Louis XVI and his wife. Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. Marie and his wife Marie Antoinette. This was the logic. You need to understand the logic as well. Marie Antoinette. Clear? Right. Due to anti-revolutionary sentiments, the French Revolution came under threat. The French Revolution came under threat. And to sustain the revolution, National Convention was established. National Convention was established. Change paragraph. Right. During the phase of National Convention, 1791 to 95, during the phase of National Convention, several ultra-revolutionary groups were established in France. Several ultra-revolutionary groups were established in France, among which the most prominent was the Jacobin Club. Headed by Robespierre. 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 Clear? Right. The members of the Jacobin Club began to persecute and assassinate anti-revolutionaries Clear? Right. Large number of people were killed. Collectively. Which was termed as which was termed as guillotine. Guillotine, which was termed as guillotine. Termed as guillotine. Okay. Right. Moreover, the French monarch Louis XVI, and the Austrian princess Marie Antoinette, his wife, the French monarch Louis XVI and Austrian princess Marie Antoinette were assassinated. Clear? Right. Such steps created an atmosphere of fear, which has been termed as the reign of terror. It was for 1 year, 1793 to 1794, termed as the reign of terror. Okay. Right. Even though such radical measures sustained the French Revolution, but adversely affected the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Adversely affected the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Okay. Right. In order to bring back the revolution, on its original track, moderate revolutionaries retaliated against the reign of terror, which is known as Thermidorian reaction. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. In 1795, the National Convention was replaced by the phase of directory, whereby 5 directors began to take all decisions about France. They began to take all decisions of France. 5 directors. Okay. Right. During the phase of directory, 1795 to 1799, a powerful military general A powerful military general, Napoleon Bonaparte. A powerful military general, Napoleon Bonaparte emerged. Bonaparte emerged and to affect the prestige of decided to affect the prestige of Austria and Britain, opposed to French Revolution. Prestige of Austria and Britain. Okay? Right. With approval of the directors, with approval of the directors, Napoleon decided to attack the areas under Austrian and French, the areas under Austrian and British control. Under Austrian and British control. Austrian and British control. Now we'll understand this. Clear? Just understand from here. So Napoleon emerged during the phase of Directory, and with approval of directors, he decided to attack all the major areas under Austrian and British control. We'll understand this. Clear? Just understand, Austria was a large country at the time, even though as of now it is a small country in Europe. Clear? So Austria by the time had control over two major regions of Europe. These two major regions of Europe were Italy and Germany. So do remember, Austria was a powerful country and Austria ruled over two major countries of Italy and Germany. By that time, there was no sense of nationalism among people of Italy and Germany. Both Italy and Germany were mere geographical entities divided into large number of smaller states. Clear? So in order to affect the prestige of Austria, Napoleon first of all attacked Italy and Germany. Clear? When he attacked Italy, do remember, it's very important. When Napoleon attacked Italy, he eliminated the local barriers of separatism and established relatively larger states in Italy. When local boundaries got eliminated, it gave a sense of political unification and nationalism among the Italian people. Clear? So Napoleon incidentally became the first person to sow the seeds of nationalism in Italy or in Europe. Clear? So you get a question also that Napoleon sowed the seeds of nationalism in Europe, though incidentally, not deliberately, because he deliberately wanted to affect the prestige of Austria, but incidentally, by eliminating the local barriers, he sowed the seeds of nationalism and unification among the people of Italy. Clear? Similarly, Napoleon attacked Germany. Germany was divided into more than 300 smaller states. He eliminated the local barriers and transformed 300 smaller states into 39 larger states, among which the largest state was Prussia. Right now, Prussia is a part of Germany. Prussia was an independent country at that time. Clear? And when he established 39 larger states, clear, he termed this confederation of 39 states as Confederation of Rhine. Clear? Since local barriers was eliminated in Germany also it generated sense of nationalism and political unification. And here also Napoleon sowed the seeds of nationalism, not deliberately but incidentally. Clear? So Napoleon sowed the seeds of unification and nationalism in both Italy and Germany, not deliberately but incidentally, and he affected the prestige of Austria. So his attack on Italy and Germany weakened the position of Austria, affected the prestige of Austria, which was the intention of Napoleon, and Napoleon began to be regarded as a popular ruler, rather savior by the people of France by this time. Clear? Apart from attacking the regions under Austria, Napoleon went forward to attack the regions under British control. in Africa, Britain was trying to establish control over a very sensitive and strategic country, that is Egypt, just because of Suez Canal region. Clear? Napoleon attacked the region of Egypt and weakened the control of Britain. After establishing or promoting control over Egypt, Napoleon went up to Central Asia to attack the British colonies. And when Napoleon began to knock at the door of India from Central Asia, it was expected by British that India would be the next target of Napoleon from northwestern side. And to defend India from the possible aggression of Napoleon, here only British authority deputed Lord Wellesley as Governor General of Bengal. So you must be knowing, in modern India, Lord Wellesley came as Governor General of Bengal in 1798, primarily to defend India against the possible aggression of Napoleon. And that is why Lord Wellesley adopted policy of war as well as a peaceful policy known as subsidiary alliance to extend the control of British over large parts of Indian territory. Clear? But when Napoleon reached up to Central Asia, began to knock at the door of India from northwestern side, by this time, people of France were fed up with French Revolution because the most important issue, financial crisis, has still not been solved, and from here they began to realize Napoleon could be the real protector and savior. So French people only requested Napoleon to return back to France and to take the charge of France as a country. Napoleon in 1798 only left Central Asia, reached France in 1799, and in 1799 he announced the end of French Revolution. Clear? Moreover, to respect the sentiments of people, he did not acquire all power. He replaced the system of directory with another system. Clear? And that was again a plural body. He replaced the system with another plural body, and this plural body came to be known as the system of consulate. Clear? So Napoleon established the system of consulate comprising of 3 councils or 3 members, and this system of consulate continued from 1799 till 1802. Clear? So Napoleon did not usurp power. Rather, he established a more compact body in place of 5 directors in form of 3 councils, and himself became one of the first council. This ended French Revolution in 1799, replaced the system of directory by the system of consulate by Napoleon, which comprised of 3 councils or members, in which Napoleon was the first council. Clear? And from here, Napoleon began to introduce large number of reforms. Clear? We'll come to the reforms of Napoleon. This was the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte during the phase of directory. Right? This development during directory. Clear? Right? Napoleon Bonaparte attacked the region of Italy in Europe, which was under Austrian domination. Clear? Right? Napoleon eliminated the local boundaries. And established relatively larger provinces, Clear? Right? This gave a sense of unification and nationalism. Among Italians. Clear? Italians, right? Therefore, it is accepted that Napoleon sowed the seeds, SOWED, it is accepted that Napoleon sowed the seeds, S-O-W-E-D, sowed the seeds of nationalism, sowed the seeds of nationalism in Italy, nationalism in Italy, comma, though incidentally, not deliberately, though incidentally, though incidentally. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. Napoleon also attacked the region of Germany. Napoleon also attacked the region of Germany. Napoleon also attacked the region of Germany. Also attacked the region of Germany. Attacked the region of Germany. Region of Germany. Attacked the region of Germany. Germany, which was divided into Germany, which was divided into more than 300 smaller states, which was divided into more than 300 smaller states, 300 smaller states, more than 300 smaller states. Okay, right. Napoleon eliminated the local barriers. Napoleon eliminated the local barriers. Eliminated the local barriers in Germany. Local barriers in Germany. And created 39 larger states. Created 39 larger states. Created 39 larger states. Created 39 larger states known as 39 larger states known as Confederation of Rhine. 39 larger states known as Confederation of Rhine. Right only. Confederation of Rhine, among which the largest state was Prussia. The largest state was Prussia. The largest state was Prussia. Largest state was Prussia. Right now Prussia is not in existence. Right now Prussia is a part of Germany. So see, you wanted to understand through map also to understand. Austria is here located, clear? Germany here, Italy here. So Austria dominated, both are adjoining countries. So Austria dominated over Germany also. Austria dominated over Italy as well. And not far away is the country of France. So Napoleon attacked Germany. Napoleon attacked Italy. Napoleon eliminated the local barriers in Italy and converted into larger states and promoted a sense of nationalism, even though incidentally. Napoleon similarly converted 300 smaller states in Germany into 39 larger states known as Confederation of Rhine, among which the largest state was Prussia. And here also Napoleon sowed the seeds of nationalism, though incidentally. Clear? So Napoleon sowed the seeds of nationalism in Europe in the 19th century, not deliberately but incidentally. And both countries, Germany on the north, Italy towards the southern side, Austria dominated over these regions, and Napoleon attacked Italy and Germany not far away from France in order to affect the prestige of Austria. Right only. Clear? Right. Therefore, it is accepted Therefore, it is accepted that Napoleon sowed the seeds of nationalism, sowed the seeds of nationalism even in Germany, incidentally, even in Germany, incidentally, Germany, incidentally, even in Germany, incidentally, clear? Germany, incidentally. Okay. Now, after this, Napoleon from France, after this Germany, Napoleon attacked the region of Egypt, which is located here in Africa, and reached up to Central Asia. Clear? So, Central Asia and Africa, Napoleon reached in this region. Clear? Now, look into this region, Asia and Africa. Clear? Egypt is here, and not far away from Egypt is Central Asia. So, he attacked the region of Egypt from here and then went to Central Asia. Clear? Right, next paragraph. In order to affect the prestige of Britain, in order to affect the prestige of Britain, Napoleon attacked the African country of Egypt. Napoleon attacked the African country of Egypt, and even reached up to Central Asia, and became a potential threat for the British in India, So, affected the prestige of Austria and Britain. Change paragraph. Right, by this time, people of France were fed up. With prolonged revolution, without any positive result. Clear? Right, the French people invited Napoleon. To take charge of France. Clear? Right, Napoleon responded immediately. And after reaching France, he announced the end of French Revolution. In 1799. French Revolution in 1799. Okay. Right. Moreover, he replaced the system of directory. With the system of consulate. whereby three councils, including Napoleon, were to take all decisions about France, were to take all decisions about France, were to take all decisions about France. Clear? About France. So this ended French Revolution. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. During the phase of consulate, Napoleon introduced several reforms. Including his own code, CODE, including his own code for civil and criminal administration, known as the Napoleonic Code. Clear? Right, next. In order to resolve the financial crisis in France, which was the most important need, in order to resolve the financial crisis in France, Napoleon sold the large region of Louisiana or New France. We had discussed already. Napoleon sold the large region of Louisiana or New France to American states in North America in 1802. Clear? Right. With huge resource, Napoleon established the Bank of France, central banking agency. Napoleon established the Bank of France at Paris. And released cash flow in the economy to boost the economic sentiment of the people. Right. Moreover, Napoleon established schools, colleges, and hospitals. To serve the common masses. Clear? Common masses. Right. On account of these reforms, Napoleon won the trust and confidence of people. Napoleon won the trust and confidence of the people and he was accepted as, the French monarch. He was accepted as the French monarch in 1804. Accepted as the French monarch in 1804. Clear? Now just understand here, don't write. Clear? So French Revolution completed its entire cycle. Clear? French Revolution started against autocratic monarchy and ultimately ended with autocratic monarch only in 1804. But Napoleon did not usurp power. Napoleon was given the charge of monarchy by the people of France themselves, because Napoleon won the trust and confidence of the people. Clear? So French Revolution is a great paradox of human history. This revolution started against autocratic monarchy but ended up with autocratic monarch only. But this monarch was with the will of the people, that is Napoleon Bonaparte. And from 1804, when Napoleon became monarch, till his defeat in 1815, this phase of almost 1 decade is known as the Napoleonic era. And when Napoleon emerged as Emperor of France, now he showed the real side. That is why a saying goes with him, power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts? Absolutely. Napoleon showed his real side when he became French emperor with absolute power in 1804, leading to Napoleonic era. So now we'll move on to discuss about Napoleonic era. So for your understanding, French Revolution started against autocratic monarchy, ended up with autocratic monarchy only, and Napoleon began to rule as Emperor of France from 1804, leading to Napoleonic era. So now we'll move on to discuss about another French phase of French history, and that is known as Napoleonic era. And this Napoleonic era is from 1804 till 1815. We'll discuss about Napoleonic era, 1804 till 1805. Now just understand, clear? When Napoleon became Emperor of France in 1804, clear, Napoleon proved to be very aggressive in nature. He had already won the trust and confidence of the French people, and Napoleon knew one thing, clear, the greatest rival of France in European politics has always been one country, that is Britain. Clear? He had already affected the prestige of Austria. Clear? Napoleon knew the biggest threat to French domination in Europe is Britain, and he also knew that the real strength of Britain is its naval superiority. Clear? And Napoleon realized France cannot contest against Britain on naval front, because Britain was very strong on naval front and France was not strong on naval front. So Napoleon, in order to defeat Britain, or in order to make his terms acceptable to Britain, Napoleon adopted another method. What was this method? Napoleon decided to bring all mainland countries of Europe under his control, because Britain is not a part of mainland Europe. We had discussed Britain separated from mainland Europe by a large water body known as English Channel. Clear? Napoleon's approach was to bring all the mainland countries of Europe under his control in order to force them not to have any trade contact with Britain, so that once a kind of blockade is created on mainland Europe for Britain, Britain will suffer from huge scarcity, and therefore Britain will be forced to accept all the terms and conditions of Napoleon. And with such intention, Napoleon defeated three major powers of Europe in quick succession. In 1804, he defeated Austria. In 1805, he defeated Prussia. In 1806, he defeated Russia. After defeating Austria, Prussia and Russia, he forced these countries along with other countries to close all the sea front or sea boundary to British ships and British trade. Clear? And therefore this system, whereby a kind of continental blockade was created for British ships to trade with mainland Europe, this system is known as the continental system, which was applied by Napoleon in 1806. But Napoleon Napoleon failed to realize one reality. That reality was Britain had large colonial empire in Asia and Africa. Even if Britain did not trade with Europe, Britain could fulfill all its requirements from colonies of Asia and Africa. That is why colonial continental system did not affect Britain. Rather, continental system backfired against Napoleon only. Clear? And that is why several countries began to show resentment, and Russia was the first country to walk away from continental system that affected the prestige of Napoleon. So first major blunder committed out of huge power and prestige by Napoleon was continental system to create blockade against Britain. Clear? We'll write about Napoleonic era. Clear? Right, next paragraph, introduction. Right, Napoleonic era. Clear? Right. Napoleon began to rule strongly. Napoleon began to rule strongly as French emperor, from 1804. As French emperor from 1804, and tried to dominate over entire Europe. Over entire Europe. Clear? Right, next sentence. Consequently, historians consider this phase as era of Napoleon, also Napoleonic era. This phase as era of Napoleon from 1804, era of Napoleon from 1804 till 1815. Till 1815. 1815. Clear? Right. Napoleon realized that the greatest threat to French domination, is from Britain. Having superior naval power. Clear? Right. In order to dictate terms on Britain, Napoleon decided to establish control over mainland countries of Europe, mainland countries of Europe. Clear? Right. With such objective, Napoleon defeated Austria in 1804. Napoleon defeated Austria in 1804, comma, Prussia in 1805, Prussia in 1805, and Russia in 1806, and Russia in 1806. Three countries in quick succession. Russia in 1806. Clear? Right. Thereafter, Napoleon pressurized these countries. Napoleon pressurized these countries to block the mainland continent of Europe, to block the mainland continent of Europe, to block the mainland continent of Europe, for British ships, and traders. British ships and traders. British ships and traders. Clear? Right. This system of economic blockade, is known in history. This system of economic blockade is known in history as the continental system, known in history as the continental system of Napoleon, continental system of Napoleon, continental system of Napoleon. Now we'll come to this system, how it backfired against Napoleon himself. Clear? After defeating Austria, Prussia and Russia, it was largely against Britain. Clear? So continental system. It's clear? Okay, so we'll continue from here with continental system and the backfire against Napoleon, and then other major blunders of Napoleon till his final defeat in Battle of Waterloo in 1815. That ended Napoleonic era. Clear? We'll continue from here in the next class. We'll have next session on Monday. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow is break, and we'll continue again from this point from Monday. Clear? And in that session, successively in that session, we'll complete the world history section also. Clear? So we'll have classes till I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. By Wednesday, I'll be completing with world history. Okay, so we'll continue from this point from Monday onwards. Any question that needs to be asked? Is everything clear to all of you? Please respond. Is everything clear to all of you? At least one or two, please respond. Is everything clear to all of you till the point we had discussed? Just respond. Okay, fine, good. So we'll continue from Monday onwards from this point itself. Clear? Thank you. Thank you and all the best. Enjoy your weekend. Clear? And take care of yourself. Subrata. Clear, sir. Thank you. Clear? So take care of yourself. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you on, or we'll meet again on Monday. Clear? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. All clear. Thank you.